your teacher, Mrs. Palmer, or Ms. Pachansky already revealed some information to you about what we're doing today, that's great. I want to officially welcome you. I want to thank you for coming today. I'm excited that I'm old enough that some of my former students are out doing awesome things in the world, and this is one of Ms. Osher's former students. Please say hello to Geoffrey Storm. Hi. He is a published author, and even more importantly, he is Annika's uncle. That's the most important thing. He was one of my 5th grade students, so he literally sat in the same desks that you... I sent her out. She's not allowed. He was a 5th grader sitting in the desk that you sit in. He was in my very first class when Ms. Osher first started teaching all those years ago. So he has, like I said, a published book. So he's here to talk to you about the writing process and what it's like to be an author. And seriously, I'm going to reveal a big secret. Part of what he's done, he started working on this idea basically when he was your age. So please don't think that your ideas are not publishable. You can take what you're thinking now and create something from it. So please keep that in mind, okay? All right, give a warm welcome to Geoffrey Storm.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yes, it's true.
Good?
Yeah, it's on. Okay. I went to this school when I was, your age. And I had Miss Osher for her very first year. And when she asked me to come, I said yes right away because this is it's a huge honor. And I remember being here as a 5th grader, 4th grader, 3rd grader, and just listening to people, guest speakers come in and talk and teach us things. And very informative things that I never forgot. So we have someone who came in and taught us how to make little origami pianos. And the things that I learned then I never forgot, so I know how to do that to this day. And that was, how long ago was that? 17 years ago?
3.
3?
3?
Right.
3.
So I wanted to come in, and that stuff it stuck with me. So I wanted to come in, and I wanted to share with you guys some awesome ideas that hopefully stick with you for just as long as this little piano stuck with me. First magic trick. All right, yeah. My name's Geoffrey Storm. I'm an author, and I started writing when I was very, very young. So who likes Star Wars? So all the way back in 1997, the original Star Wars were re-released, episode 4 at A New Hope. And my mom took me to go see it, and I was 8 years old, right? So, how old are you guys? Okay, so I was just a little bit younger. I was just a little bit younger than you guys. And I remember going to the theater and seeing Star Wars and seeing that opening scene where the Star Destroyer flies overhead and shooting at that thing, and I thought, there's planets and we're in space, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I'd never seen anything like that as an 8-year-old. And so I went home from that experience, and I was like, I want to play Star Wars. I want to, make my own stories kind of like that. But I didn't have none of my toys were spaceship shaped or anything like that. So I went out in my yard, and I have a couple of trees that like to shed their bark. And I don't know, me as a little 8-year-old saw some bark on the ground and thought, well, hey, that looks kind of like a spaceship, doesn't it? I don't know. Is that just me? Does this kind of look like a spaceship? Yeah. Maybe the bridge would be here, and engines back here, and flies along. So then I thought, if the spaceship is this big, then the people inside it must be, super small, like size of a snowflake almost. And then the tree that it came from must be, I don't know, 7 miles tall. So eventually, or no, right then, this whole kingdom kind of appeared in my backyard, where all the trees were cities, and my house, kind of in the middle of my yard, was like this big mountain, and the river running through it was a huge like ocean. And yeah, every day after school, after Leonard, I would go home and play with my little bark ships. But you need a bad guy too, so I found some more ugly looking like stick ships, and I'm like, okay, now you're the bad guy, and then they fight. So yeah. I was a little creative youngster. But then, graduating from, graduating or promotion? Promotion from elementary school felt like a very big, I mean, it is a very big deal. Going on to Smith is where I went. How many guys are going to Smith? Everyone? Okay. So that felt like a big deal, right? When I was like 11. And I felt like I was too old to be playing with my bark ships anymore, right? But I didn't want to lose that childhood blissful imagination feeling that it gave me. And I also wanted to share my stories with other people, all the little adventures that I'd go on the past few years in my backyard. So I started writing it all down in this huge binder. And you can see like my crappy little handwriting from all the way back then. And these are the same like pages in the dirt, because I would write it outside, and I accidentally dropped the paper in the dirt, and there's dirt on it. And all of this, I'd sit and I wrote, and it took me all of middle school, all of high school even. Then you can see my handwriting gets a little bit better. I upgraded to pens. And the world that I had envisioned as just an 8-year-old just became so much more complicated and more real when I wrote it all down. And then finally, at the end of high school, I decided I thought I was done. So I decided to work it into the first version of this book, which was then called Greenland. And that's this book here. This is my little symbol that I have. This is the symbol for the kingdom, and it's also the symbol of one of the goddesses. There were 6 gods and goddesses that kind of governed my little kingdom. And it's interesting to see here. I have a little map in here of my yard. This might be hard to see. But here's the mountains. So this was my house, right? And my little driveway was I turned into a giant bay or a lake. And then I had a little forest over here with a lot of dead trees, a lot of dead pine trees. So I called that the dead forest. And yeah, there's this whole little kingdom. But then, as soon as I was done with this, I wasn't happy with it. I was getting older. I'm in college at this point, and I'm reading it, and it still kind of reads like I wrote it when I was 11, which is fine, but I didn't want it like that. So I decided, instead of this being the final product, that this would be another rough draft. So we have this rough draft, and then we have this rough draft, which may look finished, but it's not. So then I rewrote it in college. Everybody should go to college. You learn a lot more about everything there. And I turned it into this guy. And then after college, I went to grad school at DePaul, and then I was going to be a teacher, actually.
My heart is full.
Yeah, but decided not to.
My heart is still full.
Because I had this dream of mine. I had to be a writer. I couldn't not be a writer. I'd been doing it for so long. So I stopped going to grad school, and I went back home to focus 100% on writing and getting the book to where I wanted it to be. And finally, 15 years later, yep, you guys aren't even 15 yet. I finally have this guy, which is the final product of the book. So it looked much nicer than this, right? Yeah. So it goes to show you, whenever you think you might be done, you can always do better. And just don't give up. Like, even after 15 years, I kept writing. And finally I got this guy, and I managed to get on the top 10 bestseller list of Amazon last year when it came out. So that's, I was very happy with that. So if you don't give up, you can go from literally sitting on this carpet like I was, except it was called the library then and we were over there. But you can go from sitting on this carpet to being on the Amazon bestseller list if you just stick with it. Just don't give up. Just keep rewriting. There's no such thing, if you guys are interested in writing, there's no such thing as a good writer. It doesn't exist. There's only good rewriters. So this book was terrible. This book was also bad. This book was bad, but this one's good. So you have to keep rewriting in order to get to where you want to go, in order to achieve your dreams.
Will you hold up the copy of your Greenland edition?
Yeah, sure. I can pass them
Do you
out.
remember 2 minutes ago when you said that was a rough draft?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
And there's also a visual, so I showed you the map, right?
Did your map change? from
Yeah,
that
so
draft?
this is the difference of writing. So I thought I was done with this. This was after high school. I published this. And you see how this map, I mean, it's okay, right? But, you know, when you put your mind to it, here, Annika, do you want to stand up? Just hold this, just like that. When you put your mind to it, and you take all that you learned in college and the rest of your life, you can turn that little map into this. So that's the difference of writing, too. Like, if you can equate this, like, how crappy this looks, that's kind of how this reads, but how cool this looks, that's how this one reads. So in a few years, you know, you just keep rewriting and you'll get up to this. So yeah, don't give up, guys.
Never done revising.
It's never done.
Yeah, how many of you thought that like his Greenland was like the final draft, the end book?
You can always do better.
And then when you have an editor, what kind of experiences did you have with your editor? You had multiple editors, didn't you?
Yeah, I had multiple editors. So my first editor helped me turn it into this one. And yeah, since I wrote it as a kid, and it still read like I wrote it as a kid. So he helped me, and I couldn't really see that because I had written it myself, right? So he helped me see, he helped me point out, like, okay, this sounds juvenile, this sounds juvenile, this sounds juvenile. And I was like, what are you talking about? But yeah, he helped me see that. So you need somebody else, in order to improve on any task that you want, you need advice from other people who are in the business, or other people who know more than you do, and you need to accept that advice a lot of times, because they do just know better than you. So I wouldn't have been able, if I hadn't been able to take that criticism, I wouldn't have been able to improve the book at all. I would have just been like, okay, this is fine, and then be done with it. But I wouldn't have gone anywhere if I hadn't kept with it.
I just want to share with you boys and girls, Mr. Storm's book has reviews online, and they are amazing. If you would indulge me for a minute to... No, but just to let you understand what Mr. Storm's talking about, it says, Geoffrey Storm does an amazing job at creating real characters. Now, you know how your teachers are always telling you in writing to develop your character, give them character traits. What kind of personality does this person have? and it says you really get to know the different characters' personalities and how they interact with each other. Their relationship never felt rushed. So Mr. Storm took his time. He didn't tell you everything you had to know about character A all in one page. It's as you read, you develop this idea of who these people and characters really are. So I'm just dumbfounded at how many awesome reviews there are. Everybody's asking for book number 2 online.
I need a minute
you
for
know
that.
You're hot when people want to read more. So you have to take what Mr. Storm is telling you and what your teachers are telling you. And as a helper who comes into your classrooms from time to time, I can see, you know, different sides of people who take, like Mr. Storm said, he took the criticism and he went back and he sat down and he worked at it. And he developed his storyline better because of what somebody had said, whether it was positive criticism or the negative criticism. So often, I will see some of my friends, you know, like, I already wrote it one time. What do you mean I have to try again? Just like your teachers are telling you. You're never done. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah, and on that same note, do you guys like writing? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So when someone does, when you turn your homework in, and your teacher does say, like, this sentence could make more sense, or this character could be more developed, it kind of hurts a little bit, right? Because it's your work, it's your art. But you eventually learn to love criticism, because if they're pointing these flaws out, that means that if you go back and fix them, your book will be that much better. So you learn to love criticism because it means improvement. And that took me a while to learn. Another thing about character, I have a very soft spot for villains. I loved, like, the Wicked Witch of the West growing up, and Jafar and Scar and all these guys. So my villain I'm super proud of. His name is Sticula, and he's the one piloting this stick ship. And this is what he looks like. He's just a really cool guy.
Can I have some of the words?
What's up?
Adjectives and descriptors you use? Because that picture doesn't exist in the book.
No, it does not.
So how do you communicate that image to your readers? What words did you use to describe him?
Well, I mean, he used to be an angel. So when he sees himself in the mirror for the first time, he's completely devastated. He falls on his knees and he looks and he's like, I used to be beautiful and now I'm a monster. He's ashen skin, he's got very gray skin, sharp teeth, hair. His hair is actually black fire, which is weird. And he's just underneath this armor, he's very decayed and skeletal almost. And yeah, so in terms of adjectives, a lot of dark ones.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But that's what we do when we write. We try and pick words. Like I was just telling this students, oh my gosh, dark fire for hair, that's a great way. I can visualize that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I would picture.
Yeah.
But your job as a writer is to communicate visual images through word choice.
Yeah, and it's not easy. You know, you as a writer too, you write the words down and you're like, oh, that's it. Like, you know, you just ended at black fire or whatever. But sometimes as a reader, reading that, you don't know what it is. So as a writer, you have to kind of think about how the reader would approach it, and you know, just make it as easily understandable as possible. And don't forget any details, because as a writer, you might see this vision in your head, but then if you describe it poorly or just if you don't use enough adjectives, the reader won't get the right image in their head. So you have to make sure that the reader understands what you want to talk about. Any other questions? Yes?
Me and my friend are writing a book together.
Awesome.
And we're only in the first chapter, but we really want to, we thought about when we were older, we wanted to try and publish it.
Yeah, stick with it. I mean, it's totally possible. I started writing it when I was 11, so definitely. Yeah?
What's that book called?
Oh, sorry, I didn't say that. Yeah, there's no title on the cover. I just didn't want a title because I didn't want to ruin the pretty picture. But this book is called Progeny of Gods. And it's the same story, essentially. I just, my first editor said, you can't name it Greenland because that's a country. And I was like, fine. So I named it Progeny of Gods because of, like I said, there's gods. And progeny is just a fancy word for children. So it's children of gods. Yes. It is. Audiobook, if you want to listen to it, and a digital and also the physical. Yes.
I have a book to read.
Can you have it to read? It's I would say, so she's saying no. She's read it. You read it, right? Yeah. So I would say you have to be about 14 to read it.
I would agree. It's a great imaginary story, but sometimes there's different versions of stories, and sometimes the adult version of the story can be more powerful, but it's best read by an adult or someone with an adult mind. Yeah. So this is not something we want you to run home and buy. This is something we want you to think about the process. Because there's definitely it's intense. Trust me, Miss Oprah had some hard times getting through some of the pages, like, whoa, wait a minute, what just happened? And it's a very, very, very long book, too, because it takes the time to develop the story. So as much as we're so impressed and so proud, this is not necessarily for 10 and 11-year-olds.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad words, and there's a lot of violence.
Yes. So
this guy kills a lot of people. He's a bad guy. Yes.
Are you writing any other books?
Yeah, I'm actually writing right now another book. I'm almost finished with it. I'm a few days from finishing it, actually. Unrelated to this, half of it takes place in Chicago, where I live now, and half of it takes place in outer space. So, yeah, it should be really cool. I'm excited about that one. Yes.
So, are those your only books?
This one, yeah, for right now, these are the only ones that are published, yeah. In the pink.
Did you paint the...
I did not. I paid someone to do this, but I did make this on Photoshop on the computer, and I also made this. That's actually me. I laid down. There's a little person in there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I laid down on my kitchen floor, and I held a sword in my hand because he's holding a sword, and I had my mom stand on the table and take a picture of me, and then I, edited it and put myself in there. Yes.
I have 2 questions. So first of all, what is the story about?
Oh, I guess I should say that. So remember the kingdom of trees that I told you about. So there's a boy that is from a different part of the world, right over here, and he was born with green eyes, which means that he is a special person called a Virtui. Now, everyone else in my world is born with brown eyes, but if you're sometimes people are born with green eyes, and there's a special something about them that isn't really understood, like maybe some connection to the gods. But they're very, since green-eyed people are different, people aren't very nice to them. So it's about him trying to, just be treated like everybody else. Which doesn't happen. And it's about him. He accidentally, on his first day at work as a guard, or a police officer, he accidentally releases the bad guy from a tree. He was trapped in a tree for 50 years. And so the story is about how this green-eyed boy named Grayson tries to stop Sticula. Did you have another question?
Yeah. How much pages is that?
So it's 400 pages. Yes. I definitely want to. The next book, the book I'm writing right now, I think is for a little bit younger audience, maybe. I don't know. But I definitely do want to write a book for younger kids. Yes.
Do you know when you're done?
Do I know what? With the next book? Soon. Let's go with the back.
So, how much is you for your book now?
How much does it cost? This is $11, I think. So it's pretty cheap as far as books go. Yes.
I have two. What is the book you're working on called?
The book I'm working on is called Lavender Star.
And what's in the, do you have anything else you didn't show us yet?
Just more books.
Yeah.
They're all the same book. They're all just that book. And another bark ship. That's all. Yeah. The hero, I don't have a picture of him, but he's 19. Maybe for a minute. He's 19, and he's got blonde hair, green eyes, and his best friend is a little bit shorter than him, and he's got brown hair and brown eyes. He's a fun little guy. His name's Tay. He uses wooden guns, and Grayson uses a sword to fight with. There's lightsabers in my book too. I forgot to say that. Yeah. The next book, I don't know when that'll be. In this series, I'm constantly rewriting. So by the time I finish this one, the idea that I had for the second book totally changed. So I don't know. but the Lavender Star book will probably be out in a year. You.
Do you want to make a movie out of it?
Definitely.
What are the names of the gods and do they have any special powers?
They sure do. So we'll start with the two. There's gods. Well, yeah, I'll just say, okay. So there's the goddess of light who created all of them, and as soon as she came into being, the god of darkness also came into being, and they forever were at war with each other. And then to help herself, the goddess of light tricked the god of darkness into like fighting or touching, and where they touched, 4 other gods were made. Goddess of earth, fire, goddess of water, and the god of air. And they all they govern those powers. And the 6 together created the world of Yavin. So yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of cities. So the capital is right here. It's called Darakin, and it's a big pine tree. And the king lives all the way at the top in a giant throne room. And the whole kingdom is called Viaden. And here's the Dead Forest, like I said. There's Mount Emos. And Black Bay. Cantidium is a big city there. And Ivy City. And yeah, a bunch of different cities.
What's that?
I'll leave this up here afterwards. What's what?
The word on the bottom, right there.
This one?
No, above it.
Oh, Anitha. It's just a region. That's actually one of the names of the goddesses. That's the goddess of water, springs, Anitha. So many questions. Annika.
Was that map at your old house?
This is the house I grew up on the old one, yeah. Yeah.
What house?
I went to Michigan State.
Yes!
Yeah.
How did you come up with all the names?
The names took a very long time. So for instance, and it's okay to change things. So for instance, the kingdom used to be called Greenland, but then my first editor said, that doesn't work. Because, when I was a young person, I would look around in my yard and say, oh, it's all green and it's a land, so green land. But then I decided to, up the reading level a little bit, make it a little bit more mature, and I wanted to have a name that meant something a little bit deeper. I also invented an entire language. So Viaden means something in my language, and Greenland doesn't. Yes? When what? That one, this one came out July last year. 15 years. All the way in the back.
Did you how long did you play with the toys?
I started at 8 after seeing Star Wars. And I said I stopped